Somewhere near the top of this list is a horror movie that a real police force put on file as a genuine case. A teenage girl, a Ouija board, and a death no one has ever been able to explain. Keep that in your back pocket. We're counting down the 10 best horror movies and shows ever to land on Netflix, worst to first. And number 1 is where the screen and the crime file stop being two different things. Number 10. Fear Street. We start easy. Fear Street is your gateway, the trilogy you put on before the stuff that actually keeps you up. Netflix released all 3 films across 3 straight weeks in July 2021, 1994, then 1978, then all the way back to 1666, each set in the cursed town of Shadyside. Director Lee Janiak shot the whole thing at once and built each chapter to ape the horror of its decade. A Scream-style slasher in the 90s, a Friday the 13th summer camp bloodbath in the 70s, a witch-flavored folk nightmare in the 17th century. It's pulled from R.L. Stine's books. Yes, the Goosebumps man. Except Stine himself said the films went from page-friendly PG to a hard R, which means a lot more blood than anyone who grew up on those paperbacks expects. There's a bread slicer kill in the first film people still describe to each other in hushed voices. Kiana Madeira anchors all 3 as Dina, and keep an eye out for Sadie Sink, and a barely there Maya Hawke. It's smart, it's mean, it's a blast. Enjoy it. Because from here on, the fun drains out of the room. Number 9. All of Us Are Dead. Number 9. A hamster bites a high school science teacher's test subject, and within about a day, an entire Korean town is overrun. All of Us Are Dead drops you inside Hyosan High School the moment the outbreak starts, with a class of teenagers barricaded in with whatever's lying around: fire extinguishers, desks, books, while their bitten classmates turn in the hallway outside. It's based on a webtoon called Now at Our School, ran for 12-hour-long episodes when it hit Netflix in 2022, and promptly charted in the top 10 in more than 90 countries. Here's why it lands so hard. Under the zombie chaos, it's really about bullying, shame, and which kids the adults decided were disposable long before the virus showed up. And it is relentless in a way American zombie shows rarely are. No cozy farmhouse, no breather episode, just one more locked door between these kids and the end. If Train to Busan gutted you in 2 hours, this is the 12-hour version. And don't worry, Busan's coming. Number 8. The Fall of the House of Usher. Number 8. And here's a name to remember, because it shows up again before the night's over. Mike Flanagan. He takes Edgar Allan Poe, fuses him with a Sackler-style pharmaceutical dynasty that got rich poisoning the country, and across 8 episodes the corrupt Usher family gets picked off one by one, each death lifted straight from a different Poe story. It is grotesquely, gleefully inventive. There's a sequence built around an acid sprinkler system at a party that I genuinely cannot describe in polite company. Carla Gugino floats through the whole thing as a figure who is very clearly not a person, collecting on a very old debt, and she is magnetic. It's gorier than Flanagan's usual work, and angrier too. Underneath the gothic dread, it's a furious little story about how the obscenely rich never, ever pay. This was his farewell to Netflix, and he did not go quietly. Number 7. Marianne. Number 7 is the one almost nobody's seen, and the one that converts everyone who does. Marianne is French, ran a single season before Netflix canceled it far too soon, and it has quietly become one of the scariest things on the entire platform. A best-selling horror novelist returns to her coastal hometown and discovers that the witch she's been writing about her whole career is real, walking around in the body of a sweet old woman from the neighborhood. And she is not happy about being put on the page. There is one smile in this show. You'll know it the instant it happens. and then it will live behind your eyes for about a week. This is the entry I save for people who tell me nothing scares them anymore. Subtitles on, every light in the house off, and good luck getting to sleep. If you stuck around this far, Marianne is your reward. Quick thing before we hit the top 6. If a show that genuinely wrecks you is the whole reason you clicked, do me a favor and subscribe, because this channel lives in exactly that territory. Okay, it only gets darker. Number 6. 28 years later. Number 6. Danny Boyle came back, and he brought the writer of the original with him. Nearly 3 decades after 28 Days Later reinvented the sprinting zombie, Boyle and Alex Garland returned to the rage virus apocalypse with a film that is somehow a coming-of-age story, a horror movie, and a meditation on death all at once. A community survives on a fortified island connected to the British mainland by a single tidal causeway, and a 12-year-old boy named Spike, played by newcomer Alfie Williams in his very first film, makes his first crossing into the infected mainland to find a doctor for his sick mother. Jodie Comer plays the mother, Aaron Taylor Johnson the father, and Ralph Fiennes turns up as a doctor you cannot read for a single second of his screen time. Here's the detail I love. Boyle shot most of it on iPhones, rigged together, but iPhones, the same scrappy instinct that made the first film look so feral. It made over $150 million and pulled 90+% from critics. This is horror that's also, annoyingly, art. Number 5. Under the Shadow. Number 5. And we go to a setting most horror never touches. Under the Shadow is set in 1980s Tehran during the Iran-Iraq War, while the city is being shelled night after night. A mother and her young daughter are alone in an apartment block as the other tenants flee. And something else may have moved in. A jinn, a wind-born spirit from folklore that latches onto fear and takes what you love most. Writer-director Babak Anvari does something genuinely brilliant here. A missile crashes through the building and doesn't detonate, and from that moment, you cannot tell whether the real horror is the supernatural thing stalking the halls or the war screaming outside the window. And that uncertainty is the terror. It sits at around 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, which for a horror film almost never happens, and it won Anvari a BAFTA for his debut. It's in Persian, it's a lean 90 minutes, and there's one image, a thing made of billowing fabric, that does not leave. Number 4. His House. Number 4. Couple flees the war in South Sudan, survives a boat crossing that their little girl does not, and is finally granted asylum in England, handed a crumbling house on a bleak estate, and told to keep their heads down or lose everything. Then, the walls start moving. His House was Remy Weeks' first feature, and it landed a flawless 100% on Rotten Tomatoes across more than 120 reviews, which essentially never happens for horror. What makes it extraordinary is the reveal that the haunting and the real-world horror are the same horror. There's a hole that opens behind the wallpaper, and behind it is everything they did to survive. Wunmi Mosaku and Sope Dirisu are both stunning, and Matt Smith shows up as the caseworker who keeps telling them to be grateful. 93 minutes, not an ounce of fat, and a final twist about what exactly followed them across the sea. It's a ghost story that's actually about guilt, the unbearable kind that comes from living when someone else didn't. Number 3. Train to Busan. Number 3. And if you watch one foreign-language horror film in your entire life, make it this one. A workaholic, divorced fund manager takes his small daughter on a train from Seoul to Busan on the exact morning a zombie outbreak detonates across the country, and the train becomes a rolling pressure cooker as the infection chews through it one car at a time. Yeon Sang-ho made it for around $8.5 million. It grossed close to $100 million worldwide and earned Stephen King's personal stamp of approval. Two details that tell you everything. 1. Not a single zombie is shot in the whole film, because realistically, nobody on a Korean train would be carrying a gun. So it's bare hands, baseball bats, and rolled-up newspapers, which makes every fight feel desperate and human. 2. There's a working-class tough guy who becomes the soul of the movie, throwing punches to clear a path for strangers' kids. And the ending, I won't say a word, except keep something to wipe your eyes with. 90+% from critics. A masterpiece, full stop. Number 2. The Haunting of Hill House. Number 2. Flanagan, again, I told you he'd be back. For a huge number of horror fans, this is simply the best horror series ever made for television, and the case is hard to argue with. 5 adult siblings, each broken in a different way by the haunted house they grew up in, are dragged back together by a death in the family, and the show braids their childhood and their present into one long, aching ghost story. The scares are real. There are background ghosts hidden in the frame that viewers didn't even notice until their third rewatch, just standing there in the dark behind the actors. But 2 episodes elevate it to something close to perfect. Episode 5, The Bent Neck Lady, ends on a twist about the ghost haunting the youngest sibling that Flanagan said made him cry the moment he thought of it. And Episode 6 is built from 5 enormous unbroken takes, the longest running over 17 minutes with no visible cut, and you'll be too emotionally flattened to even register how impossible that is to pull off. 93% from critics. Watch it with someone you trust, because you will need them by the end. Number 1. Veronica. And number 1. This is where the horror movie and the police file become the same document. In the early 90s, in the Vallecas neighborhood of Madrid, a teenager named Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro reportedly used a Ouija board to try to reach a friend's late boyfriend. In the months that followed, her family said she suffered seizures and hallucinations and saw shadows moving in her room. She died not long after, in hospital, and her death was never medically explained. Then, when police responded to a disturbance at the family home, an officer documented things he said he could not account for, and it became known, by reputation, as one of the first official police reports in Spain ever to reference paranormal phenomena. Much of the case is disputed to this day. No one has ever closed it. Paco Plaza, director of the cult found footage film IREC, turned that case into Veronica, the story of a teenage girl who holds a seance during a solar eclipse to reach her dead father and lets something in. It holds a 100% critics rating. It spread across Netflix by pure word of mouth as the movie people were too frightened to finish. And it gave the world that blind, cigarette-smoking nun who haunts your memory long after the credits. But the reason it tops this list, for this channel especially, is the thing underneath it. A real teenage girl, a real family, a real file that was never resolved. The movie is terrifying. The case it grew out of is worse, because it actually happened, and because it never got an answer. Watch that one last, and not alone. So, that's the 10. The real question is, which one I got wrong? Drop it below. What's the scariest thing on Netflix you'd have put at number 1? And where does my list fall apart for you? I read every comment, and the next countdown gets built from your answers. There's another one waiting on screen right now if your nerves can take it. They can't. Watch it anyway.